In a city built from glass towers and buried secrets, a mafia boss sees what everyone else ignores. A woman dying slowly behind perfect makeup and polite smiles. Her boyfriend's fists have taught her to disappear. But when Luca Devereux, Chicago's most feared crime lord, quietly asks, "Who hurt you?" Inside a corporate boardroom, the question shatters years of silence. Now she stands between two dangerous men, one who breaks her in private and one whose protection might cost her soul. This is a story about violence, power, and the terrifying choice between surviving alone or trusting the devil himself. Hit that like button, drop your city in the comments so I can see how far this story travels, and buckle up. Because what comes next will show you that sometimes freedom only arrives when you stop running from the darkness and walk straight into it. Oh, Mama Shiman. The rain came down like broken glass. Selene Vale stood outside the Apex Properties Tower at 6:47 in the morning, staring at the revolving doors like they might swallow her whole. Her ribs ached beneath the carefully buttoned blazer. The bruise along her left side had turned that particular shade of purple-yellow that makeup couldn't quite hide, so she'd layered foundation thick enough to feel like a mask. Her wrist throbbed where Grant had grabbed it last night, twisted it, held on just long enough to leave fingerprints beneath the skin. She told herself the same lie she'd been telling for months. It wasn't that bad. It could be worse. He didn't mean it. The doors spun. She stepped through. Inside, the lobby gleamed with marble floors and recessed lighting that made everything look expensive and cold. Security nodded at her without really seeing her. The elevator hummed as it carried her up 23 floors to the operations department where spreadsheets and conference calls filled the hours between breakfast and collapse. Celine's desk sat in the corner near the windows. She liked it there. Liked being able to see the city stretch out below, all those tiny people living tiny lives that didn't involve explaining bruises or rehearsing apologies before walking through the front door. Her computer booted up. Emails flooded the screen. She ignored most of them and opened the priority folder labeled Devereux Acquisitions. Luca Devereux. Even his name felt heavy. Everyone in the building knew who he was. Korean-Italian, mid-30s. Built like someone who'd learned young that power required posture and silence required practice. He owned half of Chicago's luxury real estate and had his fingers in industries most people didn't know existed. Restaurants, shipping, private security, import logistics. Some said he ran everything from construction bids to city council votes. Others said worse. Selene had seen him exactly 3 times. The first time he'd walked through the operations floor without looking at anyone, flanked by 2 men in charcoal suits who moved like soldiers. The second time, he'd stood near the elevators talking quietly into his phone, his voice so low she couldn't hear the words but could feel the authority vibrating underneath them. The third time was yesterday. He'd been in the executive conference room reviewing acquisition contracts when Selene had been called in to present updated logistics reports. She'd limped slightly. Grant had shoved her into the kitchen counter 2 nights prior, and her hip was still screaming. But she'd kept her face neutral, her voice steady, her hands folded to hide the tremor. Luca had watched her the entire time. Not the way men usually watched women. He'd studied her, like he was reading something written in a language only he understood. When the meeting ended, he'd held the door open and waited until she passed through before following. His voice had been quiet, calm. "You're favoring your left side." Selene had frozen. "I'm fine." That wasn't a question. She'd turned. Met his eyes for the first time. They were dark, unreadable, but not unkind. "I tripped," she'd said. "Clumsy." Luca hadn't blinked. "People trip forward. You're protecting your ribs." The air between them had gone still. Celine's throat had tightened, her pulse hammered. She'd spent years perfecting the art of deflection, of smiling through pain, of making excuses sound believable. But standing there beneath the fluorescent lights with Luca Devereux, watching her like she was a puzzle he intended to solve, all her carefully rehearsed lies felt paper-thin. "I'm fine," she'd repeated. He'd nodded slowly, stepped back, given her space. But before walking away, he'd said something that had stayed with her all night. "When you're ready to stop lying, I'll still be here." Now sitting at her desk, staring at emails she couldn't focus on, Selene replayed those words over and over until they didn't sound like concern anymore. They sounded like a threat. The morning crawled by. Selene answered emails, reviewed shipping manifests, coordinated schedules between 3 different property management teams. Her phone buzzed constantly. Most of the messages were work-related. 4 were from Grant. "Where are you? Why didn't you answer, 'You're ignoring me again'? We need to talk when you get home." She deleted them without responding. Deleting felt like a small rebellion, a tiny fist thrown at a wall too thick to break. At 10:30, her supervisor Linda stopped by her desk holding a coffee cup and wearing that tight smile people used when delivering bad news. "Morning, Selene, how are you?" "Fine?" "Good, good." Linda sipped her coffee. "Listen, I need you in conference room B at 11. Mr. Devereux requested you specifically for the logistics briefing." Celine's stomach dropped. "Me?" "Yes. He was impressed with your report yesterday." Linda's smile sharpened. "Don't overthink it. Just be professional." She walked away before Selene could respond. The next 30 minutes passed like waiting for a sentencing. Selene reapplied her makeup in the bathroom, checked her blazer for wrinkles, straightened her collar. The woman staring back from the mirror looked composed, competent, calm. The bruises didn't show. At exactly 11 o'clock, she walked into conference room B. Luca Devereux sat at the head of the table, one hand resting on a stack of contracts, the other holding a pen like a weapon. He wore a charcoal suit tailored so precisely it looked like armor. His hair was dark, pushed back, still slightly damp like he'd showered recently. 2 men stood near the windows. Security, probably, but they might as well have been furniture. Luca's attention was absolute. "Ms. Vale?" He gestured to the chair nearest him. "Sit." Selene sat. The room felt smaller than it should. "I reviewed your logistics proposal," Luca said, sliding a folder across the table. "It's thorough, efficient, better than anything my acquisition team produced last quarter." "Thank you." "I'm not complimenting you." His voice was flat, factual. "I'm stating an observation." Selene opened the folder. Her hands didn't shake. "You identified a routing issue that would have cost us 6 figures in delays," Luca continued. "You also flagged 3 vendor contracts with built-in overcharges that my finance team missed. Either you're extremely competent or everyone else here is extremely lazy." "Both can be true." The corner of his mouth twitched, almost a smile. "Almost. I'm expanding operations into Milwaukee," he said. "I need someone capable of managing cross-state logistics without requiring supervision. I want you." Selene blinked. "You're offering me a promotion?" "I'm offering you a job. Different city, different salary, different expectations." Luca leaned back slightly. "You'll have full operational authority over the Milwaukee acquisitions. Report directly to me. No middle management, no oversight unless you request it." It sounded too good, which meant it probably was. "Why me?" Selene asked carefully. Luca's gaze didn't waver. "Because you notice things other people ignore. Because you solve problems instead of creating them. And because," he paused, "you're better than this place." The compliment landed wrong. Too personal. Too sharp. "I'll need time to think about it," Selene said. "Take a week." Luca stood. The meeting was over. "But understand something, Ms. Vale. Whatever you're running from won't stop chasing you just because you stay still." Selene's breath caught. "I don't know what you mean." Luca walked toward the door, stopped, turned halfway back. "Yes," he said quietly. "You do." Then he left. Selene sat alone in the conference room for 5 full minutes before her hands started shaking. Bam! She didn't go home. Not right away. Instead, Selene stayed late at the office, buried herself in work, and ignored the 17 messages that accumulated on her phone between noon and 8 p.m. Most were from Grant. A few were from Linda asking about the meeting. One was from her mother asking if she'd be home for Thanksgiving. Selene deleted everything. By the time she finally left the building, the city had gone dark. Rain still fell in sheets, turning the streets into black mirrors reflecting neon and headlights. Selene's apartment was a 40-minute train ride from downtown. She hated the train, hated the strangers pressed too close, hated the fluorescent lights that made everyone look half dead. But it was better than going home early. Grant hated when she came home late, which was exactly why she did it. The apartment building was old, cracked brick, rusted fire escapes, a front door that didn't lock properly. Selene climbed 3 flights of stairs, her ribs protesting every step, and stopped outside apartment 3F. The lights were on inside. Grant was home. She stood in the hallway, keys in hand, practicing her breathing. In, out, in. The door opened before she could unlock it. Grant stood in the doorway wearing sweatpants and a wrinkled t-shirt, his hair messy, his jaw tight. He was handsome in that effortless way some men were, tall, broad-shouldered, with green eyes that could look warm when he wanted them to. Right now, they looked cold. "You're late. Work ran over. You didn't answer my texts. I was busy." Grant stepped aside. Let her in. The apartment smelled like takeout and beer. The TV was on, some basketball game neither of them cared about. Selene set her bag down near the couch and started toward the bedroom. Grant's hand caught her wrist. Not hard. Not yet. "Don't walk away from me." Selene stopped. "I'm tired, Grant." "I don't care." His grip tightened. "You ignored me all day. You stay late without calling. You come home acting like I'm the problem." "I'm not acting like anything. I'm exhausted." "Exhausted." Grant laughed, sharp and bitter. "You sit in an office all day pushing papers and you're exhausted. Must be nice." Selene pulled her wrist back. He didn't let go. "Grant, who were you with?" "No one." "Bullshit." "I was working." "With who?" "My boss, my team, people I work with." Grant's jaw clenched. His thumb pressed against the inside of her wrist where the bruise from last night still lingered. "You're lying." "I'm not." "You're always lying." Selene's pulse hammered. The apartment felt too small, the walls too close. "Let go of me." Grant stared at her for a long moment, then released her wrist and stepped back. "Fine. Go." Selene walked into the bedroom and shut the door. She didn't lock it. Locking it made things worse. Instead, she sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the floor until her breathing steadied. Her wrist ached. Her ribs ached. Her whole body felt like something held together with tape and prayers. Her phone buzzed. She pulled it out expecting another message from Grant. It wasn't. It was a text from an unknown number. "If you need to leave, my security team can assist. No questions, no obligations, just safety." Below the message was a single initial. L. Selene stared at the screen until the words blurred. Then she deleted the message, put the phone face down on the nightstand, and told herself she didn't need saving. The week passed in fragments. Selene worked, avoided Grant, ignored Luca's offer, pretended everything was fine. Wednesday night, Grant apologized with flowers and takeout from her favorite Thai place. He kissed her forehead, called her baby, said he'd been stressed about work and didn't mean to snap. Selene accepted the apology because rejecting it meant another fight. Thursday, Luca called her into his office. The office was on the 32nd floor, all glass walls and steel furniture, and a view of Chicago that made the whole city look like a toy. Luca sat behind a desk that looked older than the building itself, expensive wood polished to a mirror shine. "You haven't responded to my offer," he said without preamble. Selene stood near the door, didn't sit. "I'm still thinking." "No, you're not." Luca set down his pen. "You've already decided. You're just afraid to say yes." "I'm not afraid." "Everyone's afraid of something, Ms. Vale." Luca leaned back in his chair. "The question is whether you're more afraid of change or of staying exactly where you are." Selene's throat tightened. "You don't know anything about me." "I know enough." "You know nothing." Luca stood, walked around the desk, stopped a respectful distance away. "I know you're smart. I know you're capable. I know you come to work with bruises you try to hide. I know someone is hurting you, and I know you've convinced yourself it's not bad enough to leave." His voice was calm, clinical. "Am I wrong?" Selene's hands curled into fists. "You have no right." You're correct, I don't." Luca's gaze didn't waver. "But I'm offering you a way out anyway. Take the job. Move to Milwaukee. Start over. Or don't. Stay here. Keep pretending. Keep surviving." He paused. "But don't lie to yourself about what you're choosing." Selene's vision blurred. Anger or tears, she couldn't tell. I don't need your help. I didn't offer help, I offered a job. Luca returned to his desk, sat. The offer expires Monday. Think carefully. Selene left without another word. Friday night, everything broke. Selene came home at 7:30. Grant was already drunk. She smelled the whiskey before she saw the bottle. Where were you? He demanded before she even closed the door. Work. Liar. Grant. Who is he? There's no one. Liar! The shout hit like a fist. Grant crossed the room in 3 strides, grabbed her shoulders, slammed her back against the wall hard enough to knock a picture frame loose. It clattered to the floor. Glass cracked. Tell me the truth. I am... His hand moved to her throat, squeezed, not enough to choke, just enough to terrify. You think I'm stupid? Grant's breath was hot against her face. You think I don't see it? The way you stay late? The way you ignore me? You're fucking someone. I'm not... Who is he? Selene couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Her vision spotted. Then Grant let go. She collapsed against the wall, gasping. Grant stepped back, ran his hands through his hair, looked almost surprised. Jesus, Selene, baby, I'm sorry. I didn't mean... She didn't wait for the rest. Selene grabbed her bag, ran. Grant called after her but didn't follow. She made it to the stairwell before her legs gave out, sat there on the cold concrete, shaking, staring at her phone. The unknown number was still in her recent texts. Selene's thumb hovered over it. She told herself not to call. Told herself she could handle this alone. Told herself she didn't need anyone. Then she pressed dial. Luca answered on the second ring. Ms. Vale? Selene's voice cracked. I need help. Silence. Then quietly, where are you? She told him. Stay where you are. I'm sending someone. The line went dead. Selene sat in the stairwell and waited. 15 minutes later, a black car pulled up outside. A man in a dark suit stepped out, scanned the street, looked up at her through the glass door. Miss Vale? She nodded. Mr. Devereux sent me. I'm here to take you somewhere safe. Selene stood on shaking legs, got into the car, and for the first time in 3 years, drove away from the apartment without looking back. Boy. The car moved through Chicago like a shadow. Selene sat in the back seat, staring out the window, watching the city blur past in streaks of light and rain. The driver didn't speak, didn't ask questions, didn't even glance at her in the mirror. She was grateful for the silence. They drove north, away from her neighborhood, away from downtown, into a part of the city she didn't recognize. Wide streets lined with trees, buildings that looked more like fortresses than residences. The car pulled into an underground garage. The driver opened her door. This way, ma'am. Selene followed him to a private elevator. The doors closed. The elevator rose smoothly, silently, until it stopped on the top floor. The doors opened directly into a penthouse. It was enormous. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the entire city. Dark wood floors. Minimal furniture. Everything looked expensive and untouched, like a showroom for people who didn't need to prove anything. Luca stood near the windows, hands in his pockets, staring out at the rain. He turned when she entered. You're safe here, he said simply. Selene didn't know what to say. Luca gestured toward a hallway. There's a guest room, bathroom attached, clothes in the closet if you need them, food in the kitchen. Stay as long as necessary. I can't. You can. I don't even know you. Luca's expression didn't change. You know enough. Selene's hands were still shaking. Why are you doing this? Luca was quiet for a moment. Then he walked closer, stopped just out of reach. Because no one should have to survive the way you've been surviving. His voice was low, steady. And because when someone asks for help, you give it, no conditions, no debt. Selene's throat closed. I don't know how to... You don't have to know. Luca stepped back. Just rest. We'll figure out the rest tomorrow. He turned to leave. Luca. He stopped, looked back. Thank you. He nodded once, then disappeared into another part of the penthouse, leaving Selene standing alone in the center of a life she didn't recognize. She walked to the guest room, locked the door out of habit, sat on the edge of the bed, and for the first time in years she cried. Not because she was scared, but because for the first time in so long, someone had seen her, really seen her, and hadn't looked away. Mops. Selene woke to silence. Not the kind of silence that came with fear, waiting for footsteps in the hallway, listening for the turn of a doorknob, bracing for the moment everything shattered. This silence was different, clean, empty in a way that felt almost violent. She lay in the unfamiliar bed staring at the ceiling, her body still coiled tight like something expecting impact. The sheets smelled like expensive detergent. The mattress didn't sag. The room had no cracks in the walls, no water stains, no history written into the paint. Her phone sat on the nightstand. 43 missed calls, 67 text messages, all from Grant. She didn't read them, didn't need to. The pattern was always the same. Apologies first, then confusion, then anger, then threats wrapped in concern, then promises to change, then more anger when the promises didn't work. Selene turned the phone face down and stood. Her reflection in the bathroom mirror looked wrong. Same face, same bruises half hidden beneath yesterday's makeup. But something in her eyes had shifted, like a wire pulled too tight for too long had finally snapped. She washed her face, watched the foundation swirl down the drain. The bruise on her cheekbone appeared first, then the one along her jaw, the fingerprints on her throat. Evidence. That's what Luca had called it yesterday when she'd arrived, shaking and barely coherent. He'd taken one look at her neck and made a phone call. 20 minutes later, a woman arrived, late 50s, gray hair pulled back, carrying a medical bag and a camera. "My name is Dr. Brennan," the woman had said. "I'm going to document your injuries. You don't have to explain anything. You don't have to press charges. You don't have to do anything except let me take pictures and make sure you're not seriously hurt. Is that acceptable?" Selene had nodded. Dr. Brennan had been efficient, professional. She'd photographed every bruise, every mark, every place Grant's hands had left proof. She'd checked Selene's ribs, her wrist, her throat, written everything down in neat clinical handwriting. "You're lucky," Dr. Brennan had said when she finished. "Nothing broken, but luck runs out. You understand that, don't you?" Selene had understood. Now, staring at her reflection in Luca's guest bathroom, she understood it even more. She got dressed in the clothes she'd worn yesterday, wrinkled blouse, black slacks that needed washing. Her blazer was somewhere. She couldn't remember where. When she opened the bedroom door, the smell of coffee hit her first. The penthouse looked different in daylight, less intimidating, more lived in. Newspapers spread across the kitchen island, a half-empty mug near the sink, sunlight pouring through the massive windows, turning the city below into something almost beautiful. Luca sat at the island, reading something on a tablet, wearing dark slacks and a white shirt with the sleeves rolled to his elbows. He looked up when she entered. "Coffee?" "Yes." He poured a cup, slid it across the counter. Selene wrapped her hands around it. The warmth felt good. "How long was I asleep?" 14 hours. She blinked. "It's Saturday," Luca added. "Almost noon." Selene sipped the coffee. It was strong, black, exactly what she needed. "Your phone's been ringing," Luca said. "I know." "Grant?" "Yes." Luca set down his tablet. "Do you want me to handle it?" "Handle it how?" "However you need me to." Selene stared at him. His expression was unreadable, calm, but beneath the calm was something else, something cold and patient and absolute. "What does that mean?" she asked carefully. "It means I can make him stop calling, stop showing up, stop existing in your life." Luca's voice didn't change. "The method is up to you." Selene's pulse quickened. I'm talking about options." Luca leaned back slightly. "Legal options, restraining orders, harassment charges, documentation, lawyers who don't lose, or," he paused, "other options, less legal, more permanent, more effective." The air in the kitchen went very still. Selene set down her coffee. "You're serious. Always. You'd actually..." Without hesitation, Selene's hands trembled. "I don't want him dead." "Then he won't be. I just want him gone." "That," Luca said quietly. I can arrange. Selene looked away, stared out at the city. All those buildings. All those people living normal lives where violence didn't lurk behind every conversation. I don't know what I want, she admitted. That's fine, you don't have to decide today. Luca stood, walked to the windows. But understand something, Selene. Men like Grant don't stop because you ask nicely. They don't stop because the law tells them to. They stop when stopping becomes their only option. And you're going to give him that option? Luca turned, met her eyes. I'm going to eliminate every other option until he takes it. Yes. The rest of Saturday passed in strange, fragile quiet. Luca left the penthouse around 2, flanked by the same security team Selene had seen at the office. He didn't say where he was going, didn't ask if she'd be okay alone. Just reminded her that the doors were locked, the security system was armed, and his number was programmed into the house phone. Selene spent the afternoon doing nothing. She sat by the windows, watched the city move below, tried to read a book from Luca's shelves, something about urban development and architectural theory, but couldn't focus past the first page. Her phone kept buzzing. She kept ignoring it. By evening, the messages had shifted. Baby, please, I'm sorry, I love you. Just talk to me, you're scaring me. Where are you? I'm coming to find you. That last one made her stomach drop. Selene stared at the screen. Her thumb hovered over the reply button. Then the phone rang. Not Grant. Luca. She answered. He's outside your building, Luca said without preamble. Been there since 4 p.m. Security cameras picked him up. He's been calling your name, trying the buzzer. Drunk, probably. Definitely unstable. Selene closed her eyes. I'm handling it, Luca continued. But I need to know how far you want me to go. What are my options? I send my people. They remove him. Quietly. He wakes up in a holding cell with a restraining order and assault charges waiting. Or... Luca's voice dropped. I go myself. Have a conversation. Make sure he understands exactly what happens if he tries this again. What kind of conversation? The kind that leaves an impression. Selene's heart hammered. Don't hurt him. I won't. Luca, I said I won't. His tone was firm, final. But he needs to understand the situation, and I'm very good at making people understand. Selene was quiet for a long moment. Do it. You're sure? Yes? The line went dead. It's in. Luca returned 2 hours later. Selene heard the elevator doors open, heard his footsteps cross the hardwood. She was sitting in the living room, knees pulled to her chest, staring at nothing. He walked in, shrugged off his coat, poured himself a drink from the bar near the windows. It's done. Selene looked up. What did you say to him? Luca sipped his drink. Whiskey, probably. Neat. I explained that you are under my protection, that any attempt to contact you, follow you, or come near you again would be considered a direct threat, that I have resources he can't imagine and patience he shouldn't test. Luca set down the glass. I also explained that the bruises on your neck are documented, that Dr. Brennan's report is filed with my legal team, and that if he wants to avoid felony charges, he should disappear. And he believed you? He didn't have a choice. Selene's throat tightened. Did you threaten him? I stated facts. That's not an answer. Luca turned, looked at her directly. Yes. I threatened him. I told him that if he touches you again, I'll make sure he regrets every decision that led him to that moment. I told him I know where he works, where he drinks, who his friends are, and how much debt he's carrying. I told him that disappearing is the smartest thing he'll ever do. He paused. And I told him that if he's too stupid to disappear, I'll make him. Selene's pulse roared in her ears. You can't just... I can. I did. Luca's voice was calm, and I'll do it again if necessary. This isn't your fight. You made it my fight when you called me. I didn't ask you to. You asked for help. Luca's gaze was steady, unflinching. This is what help looks like. Selene stood, paced to the windows, pressed her palms against the glass. I don't want to owe you. You don't. Everyone owes you something? That's how this works, isn't it? She spun around. You're not doing this out of kindness. You're doing it because it gives you leverage, because it makes me dependent, because I fucking care. The words hit like a slap. Selene froze. Luca set down his drink, walked closer. stopped a few feet away. I care, he repeated, quieter now. I care that you came to work every day pretending everything was fine while someone was breaking you piece by piece. I care that you're smart and capable and wasted in a job that barely sees you. I care that the first time you asked for help, you had fingerprints on your throat. His jaw tightened. So yes, I threatened him. And I'll keep threatening him until he's gone. Not because I want leverage, because you deserve better. Selene's vision blurred. You don't know me. I know enough. You know nothing. I know you're terrified. Luca's voice was almost gentle. I know you think accepting help makes you weak. I know you've been surviving so long you've forgotten what living feels like. He paused. Am I wrong? Selene's breath hitched. I hate you. No, you don't. I hate that you're right. I know. She turned away, wiped her eyes. What happens now? Now, Luca said. You decide what you want. Stay here. Go back. Take the job in Milwaukee. Disappear completely. Whatever you choose, I'll make sure you're safe while you choose it. And if I choose wrong? There's no wrong choice, only yours. Sunday morning, Grant violated the restraining order. Selene was still asleep when Luca's phone rang at 6 a.m. He answered in the kitchen, voice low, listened for 30 seconds, then made 3 more calls in rapid succession. By the time Selene woke up, it was handled. She found Luca at the kitchen island again, coffee in hand, tablet open to what looked like security footage. What happened? Luca turned the screen toward her. The footage showed Grant outside Luca's building, pacing, shouting, trying to force his way past security. The timestamp read 5:47 a.m. He followed you, Luca said flatly. Probably followed the car Friday night. Probably spent the weekend figuring out where you went. This morning he showed up demanding to see you. Selene's hands clenched. Where is he now? Police custody. Violation of a restraining order, trespassing, drunk and disorderly. He'll be held until arraignment Monday morning. How long will they keep him? Depends on the judge. Could be released Monday afternoon. Could be held longer if my lawyers push hard enough. Luca closed the tablet. But it doesn't matter. He knows where you are now, which means staying here isn't safe anymore. Selene's stomach dropped. So what do I do? You leave Chicago. I can't just... Yes, you can. Luca stood. The Milwaukee job is still open. I have a secured apartment ready. My people will move your things from your old place. You'll be 2 hours away, under protection, with a fresh start. Or, he paused. You stay, and we deal with Grant the hard way. What's the hard way? Luca's expression darkened. You really want to know? Selene was quiet for a long moment. No. Then take the job. Leave today. Today? Now. By noon, Selene was in a car heading north on I-94. Everything had happened so fast she barely remembered packing. Luca's people had moved through the penthouse like ghosts, efficient and silent, boxing up the few belongings she'd brought. Someone had retrieved clothes from her apartment, the one she'd shared with Grant for 2 years, while she sat in Luca's living room staring at paperwork she didn't fully understand. Employment contract, relocation agreement, non-disclosure clauses, salary numbers that made her dizzy. She'd signed everything. The car was black, expensive. The driver was the same man from Friday night. He didn't speak, didn't ask questions, just drove while Selene watched Chicago disappear in the rearview mirror. Her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. The apartment is ready. Address below. Keys with building security. Call if you need anything. L. Below was an address in Milwaukee's 3rd Ward. Selene stared at it until her vision blurred. Then she turned her phone off. Eek. The Milwaukee apartment was on the 8th floor of a renovated warehouse building overlooking the Milwaukee River. Exposed brick, high ceilings, massive windows, furniture that looked like it belonged in a magazine. It was beautiful. It was empty. Selene stood in the center of the living room and felt nothing. Her phone rang. She'd turned it back on 20 minutes ago. Already regretted it, but it wasn't Grant. It was Luca. She answered. You made it. Yes. Everything acceptable? It's too much. It's exactly enough. Luca's voice was calm. I'll be there tomorrow. We'll go over your responsibilities. introduce you to the local team, get you oriented. For now, rest. Luca? Yes? Selene hesitated. Thank you. Silence. Then, quietly, you're welcome. The line went dead. Monday morning, Luca arrived at 9 sharp. He wasn't alone. 2 men flanked him, same security team from Chicago. They waited in the hallway while Luca stepped inside carrying a leather briefcase and 2 coffees. He handed her one. Black. No sugar. How did you know? I pay attention. Selene took the coffee. Sipped. It was perfect. Luca set his briefcase on the kitchen island and pulled out a stack of folders. Milwaukee Operations Overview, he said, tapping the first folder. Property acquisitions in progress. Vendor contracts. Logistics schedules. Everything you'll be managing. He opened the second folder. Building security protocols, emergency contacts. My people here in the city. Memorize these. Selene flipped through the pages. This is more than I expected. You're more capable than you think. You don't know that. I do. Selene looked up. Why are you doing this? I already told you. Tell me again. Luca was quiet for a moment. Then he walked to the windows, stared out at the river. When I was 16, I watched my father beat my mother so badly she couldn't stand. He did it because dinner was late, because she'd questioned him, because he could. Luca's voice was flat, emotionless. I was too young to stop him, too weak, too afraid. She stayed with him for 5 more years before he finally killed her. He turned, met Selene's eyes. I swore I'd never be that weak again, and I swore that if I ever had the power to stop it happening to someone else, I would. Selene's breath caught. I'm sorry. Don't be. It made me who I am. Luca picked up his briefcase. The point is, I see you the way I saw her, surviving, pretending, waiting for it to get bad enough to leave, and I refuse to watch that happen again. So this is guilt? This is principle. Selene set down her coffee. What if I fail? You won't. What if Grant finds me? He won't. You can't promise that. Luca walked closer, stopped just within reach. Yes, he said quietly. I can. The first week passed in a blur of work. Selene threw herself into the job like drowning. Vendor meetings, site inspections, logistics coordination. She worked 12-hour days and came home exhausted enough to collapse without thinking. It helped. Thinking was dangerous. Thinking meant remembering Grant's hands around her throat. Meant wondering if he'd found her yet. Meant replaying Luca's confession over and over until the words lost meaning. I see you the way I saw her. Selene didn't want to be seen. Being seen meant being vulnerable. Being vulnerable meant getting hurt. Thursday afternoon, she was reviewing shipping manifests in her new office. Smaller than Chicago, but private, with a view of the city. When her phone rang. Chicago area code. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer. Hello? Selene Vale? The voice was male, professional, clipped. Yes. This is Detective Morris with the Chicago Police Department. I'm calling regarding Grant Mercer. Selene's pulse spiked. What about him? Mr. Mercer was released from custody Monday afternoon. Tuesday morning, he filed a missing persons report claiming you'd been taken against your will. We've opened an investigation. The room tilted. I wasn't taken. That's what we need to confirm. Can you come down to the station to make a statement? I'm in Milwaukee. Then we can send someone to you. When are you available? Selene's hands shook. I don't understand. I left willingly. I have a new job, a new apartment. I'm fine. Mr. Mercer claims otherwise. He says you were coerced by your employer. He's filed a formal complaint alleging kidnapping and extortion. Selene's vision blurred. That's insane. Maybe, but we still need your statement. Can you meet with an officer tomorrow? Yes. Fine, whatever. Thank you, Ms. Vale. Someone will be in touch. The line went dead. Selene sat frozen at her desk. Then she called Luca. He answered immediately. What happened? She told him. Luca was silent for 3 long seconds. Then, I'll handle it. How? My lawyers will contact the detective. Provide documentation. Prove you left voluntarily. Provide evidence of Grant's abuse. By the end of the day, the investigation will be closed. And if it's not, it will be. Luca, trust me. I don't know if I can. Then trust that I'm very good at making problems disappear. The line went dead. That's Friday, the investigation was officially closed. Detective Morris called personally. Ms. Vale, after reviewing the evidence provided by your legal team, we've determined there's no basis for Mr. Mercer's claims. The case is closed. I apologize for any inconvenience. Selene exhaled for what felt like the first time in days. Thank you. One more thing. Morris paused. Mr. Mercer has been instructed to cease all contact with you. Violation will result in immediate arrest. If he tries to reach out, call us. Understood? Understood. The relief lasted exactly 6 hours. That evening, Selene came home to find her apartment door ajar. Not broken, not forced, just open. Her heart stopped. She pulled out her phone, dialed Luca. Don't go inside, he said immediately. Get out of the building, now. Someone's been here. I know, security flagged it 10 minutes ago. I'm already on my way. How did they… Selene, get out of the building. She turned, ran for the stairs. Made it to the lobby before she heard footsteps behind her. She spun. Grant stood in the stairwell doorway. He looked terrible, unshaven, bloodshot eyes, clothes wrinkled, but smiling. That same smile he used to wear before everything went wrong. Baby, he said softly. I've been looking everywhere for you. Selene backed toward the exit. Stay away from me. I just want to talk. There's a restraining order. I don't care about that. Grant stepped closer. I care about you, about us, about fixing this. There's nothing to fix. You're wrong. His voice cracked. I love you. I know I messed up. I know I hurt you, but I can change. I promise. Just come home. I'm not coming home. Yes, you are. He lunged. Selene screamed. Then the lobby doors exploded inward. Luca walked through them like something carved from stone. His security team flanked him. 3 men, all moving with the same cold precision. Grant froze. Luca's gaze locked onto him. Step away from her. Grant didn't move. I said step away. This is none of your business. Luca crossed the lobby in 4 strides, grabbed Grant by the collar, slammed him against the wall hard enough to crack plaster. You broke into her apartment, violated a restraining order, followed her across state lines. Luca's voice was ice. You're done. Grant struggled. You can't. Luca's fist connected with Grant's jaw. The crack echoed through the lobby. Grant crumpled. Luca released him, stepped back, adjusted his cuffs. Call the police, he said to one of his men. Then to Selene, Are you hurt? She shook her head. Luca walked to her, stopped close enough to touch, but didn't. I'm sorry. For what? For not seeing this coming. Selene stared at him. At this man who'd upended her entire life, who'd promised safety and delivered violence, who looked at her like she mattered. You hit him. Yes. You could have killed him. I wanted to. Why didn't you? Luca's expression softened slightly. Because you asked me not to. Police sirens wailed in the distance. Grant groaned on the floor. And Selene realized with absolute clarity that she was standing at a cliff's edge with no way back. She could run, go into hiding, disappear into some quiet life where men like Grant and men like Luca couldn't find her, or she could step forward, into the darkness, into Luca's world, into whatever came next. The sirens grew louder. Selene made her choice. She stepped closer to Luca. Take me somewhere safe. Luca's eyes searched hers. Are you sure? Yes. He nodded once, then took her hand and led her out of the building. Behind them, Grant screamed her name until the police dragged him away. And Selene didn't look back. The estate sat 2 hours north of Milwaukee, hidden behind iron gates and forest so thick the road disappeared into shadows. Selene watched the trees blur past through tinted windows, her hand still wrapped in Luca's, neither of them speaking. The silence wasn't comfortable. It was the kind that came after explosions, when the ringing in your ears was too loud to hear anything else. Grant's scream still echoed in her head. The crack of Luca's fist against his jaw, the way Grant had crumpled like something boneless. Selene should have felt relief, should have felt vindicated, should have felt something other than this hollow numbness spreading through her chest like frost. Instead, she felt complicit, like she'd crossed a line she didn't even know existed until it was behind her. The car slowed. Gates opened. The estate appeared through the trees like something out of a Gothic novel. Stone and glass and sharp angles, windows glowing warm against the approaching dusk. Snow had started falling an hour ago, soft and silent, coating everything in white. The driver stopped at the entrance. Luca's security team emerged first, flanking the vehicle, scanning the perimeter like soldiers expecting ambush. Then Luca stepped out, extended his hand. Selene took it. The cold hit her immediately. Wisconsin winter, brutal and unforgiving. She had no coat, no jacket, just the blouse and slacks she'd worn to work this morning in a different lifetime. Luca draped his coat over her shoulders without asking. Inside, she followed him through double doors into a foyer that swallowed sound. Stone floors, high ceilings, a staircase that curved upward into darkness. The house felt more like a fortress than a home. Every surface hard, every corner sharp, built to keep things out. Or in. Luca's phone rang. He answered without looking at the screen. Status. A pause. Good. Keep him there until I say otherwise. Another pause. I don't care. Make him understand. He hung up, turned to Selene. Grant's been transferred to county jail. Bail hearing is Monday. My lawyers are pushing for remand. He won't make bail. How can you be sure? Because I own the judge. Selene's stomach dropped. What? Luca walked past her toward what looked like a study. She followed. The room was all dark wood and leather, shelves lined with books that looked red, a desk that probably cost more than her entire apartment back in Chicago. Luca poured 2 glasses of whiskey, handed her one. Drink. She didn't, just held the glass, feeling the weight of it. You own a judge. I own several. That's corruption. That's survival. Luca sipped his drink. The system doesn't protect people like you, Selene. It protects people like Grant. Men who know how to smile in court, how to apologize convincingly, how to make you look unstable while they look reasonable. He set down his glass. So yes, I own judges, lawyers, cops. Anyone who can tip the scales in the right direction when the scales are already rigged. Selene's hands shook. This is insane. This is reality. No. Reality is laws and consequences, and you think laws protected you? Luca's voice was sharp now, cold. You had a restraining order. He violated it. You had evidence. He ignored it. You called the police. They did nothing until I made them do something. He stepped closer. Don't lecture me about reality when you've been living in denial for 3 years. The words hit like a slap. Selene set down her glass before she dropped it. I need air. You need to face what's happening. I need to not be in this room with you right now. She turned, walked out, found herself in a hallway lined with windows overlooking the forest. Snow fell heavier now, blanketing the trees, turning the world into something silent and suffocating. Her reflection stared back at her from the glass. She barely recognized herself. Footsteps behind her, Luca. I shouldn't have said that, but you did. You're not in denial anymore. I know that. Selene laughed, bitter and sharp. You don't know anything. You think you saved me? You think dragging me into your world of own judges and broken jaws is saving me? She spun around. You're just another man who thinks he knows what's best for me. Luca's jaw tightened. I'm nothing like him. Aren't you? You control things. You manipulate outcomes. You use violence to solve problems. To protect you. I didn't ask for protection. You called me. You asked for help. I asked for safety. Not this. Selene gestured at the estate, at the absurdity of it all. Not private estates and criminal empires and what? Luca's voice dropped. Dangerous. You'd rather be back in that apartment with Grant's hands around your throat? You'd rather be dead than uncomfortable? Selene's breath hitched. That's not fair. None of this is fair. They stood in the hallway, snow falling beyond the windows, silence stretching between them like barbed wire. Finally, Luca exhaled. There's a guest room on the second floor, East Wing. Stay as long as you need. Leave whenever you want. The choice is yours. He walked away. Selene watched him disappear into the shadows. Then she sank to the floor and cried until there was nothing left. Oh, she woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows. The guest room was massive. King bed, fireplace, bathroom attached with a tub deep enough to drown in. Someone had left clothes on the chair near the bed. Jeans, sweater, undergarments still tagged. All her size. Selene dressed mechanically, splashed water on her face, stared at her reflection until it stopped feeling like looking at a stranger. Downstairs, the house was quiet. Too quiet. She found the kitchen, industrial, spotless, clearly designed by someone who either cooked seriously or never cooked at all. Coffee sat in a carafe on the counter, still hot. A note beside it in sharp, clean handwriting. Help yourself. I'll be back this evening. Security is on the grounds if you need anything. L. Selene poured coffee, stood at the window watching snowfall. Her phone sat on the counter where she'd left it last night. 23 missed calls, 17 voicemails, all from numbers she didn't recognize. She played the first one. Grant's voice, slurred and desperate. Baby, please call me back. I know I messed up. I know you're scared, but you have to understand that man is dangerous. He's manipulating you. She deleted it. The second voicemail was from a woman. Ms. Vale, this is Rebecca Chen with Channel 7 News. We're running a story about allegations of corporate coercion and abusive relationships in Chicago's real estate sector. We'd love to get your comment. Please call. Delete. Third voicemail. Male, professional. Selene Vale, this is Marcus Webb, attorney for Grant Mercer. My client is alleging that you've been coerced into making false statements under duress. We'd like to discuss. Delete. Selene set down the phone. Her hands weren't shaking anymore. They were numb. She spent the day wandering the estate like a ghost. The house was enormous. Library, gym, indoor pool, rooms she couldn't identify the purpose of. Everything expensive, everything untouched. Like a museum to a life no one actually lived. By the time Luca returned that evening, Selene was sitting in the library with a book she hadn't read a single page of. He appeared in the doorway carrying a manila envelope. We need to talk. Selene set down the book. About what? Luca crossed the room, sat in the chair across from her, opened the envelope, pulled out photographs. He slid them across the coffee table. Selene looked down. The first photo showed Grant outside Luca's Chicago building. The second showed him at her old apartment. The third showed him talking to someone Selene didn't recognize. A man in an expensive suit, gray hair, sharp eyes. Who is that? She asked. Vincent Castellano, Grant's lawyer, also a fixer for several organized crime families in Chicago. Luca pulled out another photo. This was taken 3 days ago. Grant meeting with Castellano and 2 other men. One of them is Marco Santini, runs loan sharking and extortion out of the South Side. The other is James Kwan, enforcer. Selene's pulse quickened. Why is Grant meeting with criminals? Because he owes them money, a lot of money, gambling debts, over $200,000. The room tilted. What? He's been borrowing from Santini for 18 months, using your shared bank account to make payments. When you left, he defaulted. Now Santini wants his money, and Grant is desperate. Selene's throat closed. How do you know this? I know everything, Selene. It's how I stay alive. She stared at the photos, at Grant's face, at the desperation written across it. He used my money to pay criminals. Yes. And now they're coming after him. And you. Luca pulled out another document. Santini's people have been asking about you, where you work, where you live, how much you're worth. He met her eyes. They think you're leverage. Selene's hands clenched. This can't be real. It's very real. Why didn't you tell me sooner? Because you weren't ready to hear it. And I'm ready now? Luca leaned back. You're sitting here instead of running. That's progress. Selene stood, paced to the window, snow falling, always falling. What do I do? You let me handle it. Handle it how? I talked to Santini, explain the situation, make it clear you're not involved, pay off Grant's debt if necessary. You'd do that? To keep you safe? Without hesitation. Selene turned. And what do you get in return? Luca's expression didn't change. Nothing. I don't believe you. I don't care. Everyone wants something, Luca. What do you want? He stood, walked toward her, stopped close enough that she could see the faint scar above his left eyebrow, the way his jaw tensed when he was holding something back. I want you safe. I want you free. I want you to stop looking over your shoulder waiting for the next person to hurt you. His voice was low, steady. That's what I want. Selene's breath caught. Why? Because you deserve it. That's not a reason? It's the only one that matters. They stood in the dim light of the library, snow falling beyond the windows, the space between them charged with something Selene couldn't name. Then her phone rang. She pulled it out. Unknown number. Answered before she could think better of it. Hello? Static, breathing, then a voice, male, unfamiliar. Selene Vale? Who is this? Someone who knows where you are. Someone who knows what you're worth. The voice was calm, almost friendly. Grant sends his regards, says you two have unfinished business. Selene's blood froze. If you touch me, we're not interested in touching you. We're interested in what you can pay. I don't owe you anything. Your boyfriend does, which makes it your problem. He's not my boyfriend. Doesn't matter. His debt is $230,000. You have 1 week to pay half, or we start taking pieces. The line went dead. Selene stared at the phone. Luca took it from her hand, checked the number, made a call. Trace this, now. He hung up, turned to Selene. Pack a bag. We're leaving. Where? Somewhere they can't find you. You said I was safe here. I was wrong. They left the estate an hour later in an armored SUV with 3 security vehicles flanking them. Luca drove himself, phone pressed to his ear, giving orders in rapid Italian that Selene couldn't follow. The convoy moved through the night like a military operation. Selene sat in the passenger seat watching the forest blur past, her mind racing. $230,000. Grant's debt. Now her problem. Where are we going? She asked when Luca finally hung up. Safe house in northern Michigan. Off the grid. No digital footprint. No one knows it exists except my inner circle. How long? As long as it takes. For what? For me to end this. Selene looked at him. At this man who'd upended her life, who'd promised safety and delivered chaos, who looked at her like she was something worth protecting, even when protecting her cost him everything. You can't keep doing this. Doing what? Fixing my problems, fighting my battles. You're not responsible for me. Luca's hands tightened on the wheel. I know that. Then why? Because I care about you. The words came out sharp, brutal, like admitting weakness. I care that you're terrified. I care that your ex-boyfriend is a criminal and a coward. I care that men are threatening you for debts you didn't incur. I care. He glanced at her. And I'm not going to stop caring just because it's inconvenient. Selene's chest tightened. What if I don't want you to care? Too late. They drove in silence after that. Hours passed. The forest thickened. Civilization disappeared behind them. Selene dozed off somewhere around midnight and woke to the SUV stopping in front of a cabin that looked like it belonged in a different century. Log walls. Stone chimney. No visible neighbors for miles. Luca killed the engine. Stay close. They went inside. The cabin was small but well-equipped. Generator. Satellite phone. Fireplace already stoked. Someone had stocked the fridge. Someone had made the bed. Luca's operation was terrifyingly efficient. Get some sleep, he said. I'll keep watch. You need sleep too. I'll sleep when you're safe. Selene wanted to argue. Wanted to tell him he was being ridiculous. Wanted to scream at the absurdity of her life becoming a thriller movie she never auditioned for. Instead, she went to the bedroom, closed the door, sat on the edge of the bed, and realized with absolute clarity that she was falling for him. For Luca Devereux. Crime lord, manipulator, protector, monster, savior, the man who'd seen her when no one else bothered to look. She hated herself for it, but that didn't make it less true. 3 days passed in the cabin. Luca made calls, coordinated strategy, negotiated with people whose names Selene didn't want to know. She caught fragments of conversations, threats delivered in calm voices, promises that sounded like warnings, the machinery of his world grinding forward while she sat by the fire pretending to read. On the fourth day, Luca's phone rang at dawn. He answered, listened, his face went dark. When? Pause. How bad? Another pause. I'm on my way. He hung up, looked at Selene. Grant escaped custody. Her stomach dropped. How? Santini's people bribed a guard, walked him out during a transport. He's been missing for 6 hours. Where is he now? We don't know, but he's desperate, which makes him dangerous. Selene stood. What do we do? You stay here. I go back to Milwaukee and end this. No. Selene, I'm not hiding anymore. I'm not letting you fight my battles while I sit in a cabin pretending I'm safe. She crossed the room. If this is my life now, I need to face it. Luca studied her. Something shifted in his expression. Respect, maybe, or resignation. You understand what you're asking? Yes. Once you step into this, there's no stepping back. I know. He nodded slowly. Then we leave in 20 minutes. Okay. They drove back to Milwaukee in silence. The city appeared on the horizon like a wound. Gray, cold, unforgiving. Luca's phone buzzed constantly. Updates, sightings, intel. Grant had been spotted near Selene's old apartment, then near Luca's building, then near the office. He was hunting, following the trail of her life like a bloodhound. They arrived at Luca's Milwaukee building just after noon. Security was doubled, armed men in suits at every entrance, cameras everywhere. The lobby felt like a war zone. Luca led Selene to his private office on the top floor. Floor-to-ceiling windows, view of the entire city, like standing at the center of a chessboard watching the pieces move. Stay here, Luca said. Don't leave this room. Don't answer calls from numbers you don't recognize. I know the drill. He hesitated, then reached into his desk drawer, pulled out a handgun, set it on the desk. Safety's here, point and shoot, don't hesitate. Selene stared at the weapon. I know, but if Grant gets past my security, you won't have time to learn. Luca's eyes were hard. Survival isn't pretty, Selene. It's doing what you have to do when everything else fails. He left before she could respond. Selene sat alone in the office, staring at the gun, wondering how her life had become a story where weapons on desks felt normal. Hours crawled by. Outside, the city moved. People went about their lives. Unaware, safe. Selene envied them. Her phone buzzed. Text from Luca. Grant spotted near 3rd Ward. Stay alert. Then another. Security has him contained, bringing him in. Selene's pulse hammered. She waited. 15 minutes later, the elevator dinged, footsteps in the hallway. The office door opened. Luca walked in. Behind him, flanked by 2 security guards, was Grant. He looked worse than she'd ever seen him, hollow-eyed, unshaven, desperate, but still smiling that same smile he'd always used when he wanted forgiveness. Hi, baby. Selene didn't move. Luca gestured to the guards. Leave us. They hesitated. Out. The guards left, closed the door. Now it was just the 3 of them. Grant, Selene, Luca. The silence stretched like broken glass. Grant spoke first. I just want to talk. You've lost that privilege, Luca said flatly. I'm talking to Selene, not you. Everything you say to her goes through me. Grant laughed, bitter, unhinged. You really think you're protecting her? You really think dragging her into your criminal empire is helping? He looked at Selene. He owns judges, baby. He owns cops. He's not a businessman. He's a gangster. And you're just another asset. Selene's hands clenched. I'm not your baby. I'm not your anything. We had 3 years together. You had 3 years of control. I had 3 years of survival. Grant's smile cracked. I loved you. You don't know what love is. And he does? Grant gestured at Luca. He's using you. Once you're not useful anymore, he'll discard you like everyone else. Luca stepped forward. Enough. Tell her the truth, Grant said. Tell her why you really hired her. Tell her about the property development deal with Santini. Tell her you needed someone clean to sign contracts because your name would raise flags. Tell her, shut up. Tell her she's been laundering money for the mob without even knowing it. The words hit like bullets. Selene's vision tunneled. What? Luca turned, met her eyes, and said nothing, which was answer enough. Selene's breath stopped. Tell me he's lying. Luca's jaw tightened. It's more complicated than, tell me he's lying. Silence. Grant laughed. See? He can't. Because it's true. Every contract you signed, every logistics report you filed, every shipment you coordinated, all of it was moving money through legitimate channels to hide where it came from. He looked at Luca. She's not your employee, she's your mule. Selene couldn't breathe, couldn't think. The room spun. Selene, Luca started. Don't. Her voice broke. Don't say my name, don't touch me, don't. She grabbed the gun from the desk, pointed it at Luca. Both men froze. Selene, Luca said carefully, put the gun down. You used me. I protected you. You lied to me. I kept you alive. By turning me into a criminal. Her hands shook. The gun wavered. I trusted you. I believed you. I thought... Her voice cracked. Luca took a step forward. Don't move. He froze. I gave you everything, Selene whispered. I left my entire life. I trusted you when I couldn't trust anyone. And you were using me the whole time. It wasn't like that. Then what was it like? Luca's expression was unreadable. I needed someone clean, someone smart, someone the authorities wouldn't suspect. You were perfect. The words carved through her. So Grant was right. I'm just an asset. No. Then what am I? Luca's mask finally cracked. You're the only thing in my life that isn't built on lies. Selene's hands trembled. Except this was a lie, too. The job was a lie. My feelings aren't. I don't believe you. I don't care, it's still true. Behind them, Grant moved. Fast. He lunged for Selene, grabbed the gun, twisted her wrist. The weapon discharged. The sound was deafening. Selene screamed. Someone hit the floor. The world went silent. Selene looked down, blood spreading across expensive carpet. Luca on his knees, hand pressed to his side, red seeping between his fingers. Grant holding the gun, staring at it like he didn't understand how it got there. And Selene standing between them both, realizing with absolute horror that everything she'd thought was real had been a performance, and the only truth left was written in blood on the floor. The blood spread too fast. Selene watched it pool beneath Luca's knees, dark and thick against the pale carpet, and something inside her brain simply stopped working. The gun had fired. Someone was bleeding. Grant stood frozen, holding the weapon like it had materialized in his hand without permission. Time fractured. Luca's face had gone white. His hand pressed against his side where the bullet had torn through fabric and flesh. Blood seeped between his fingers, steady and relentless. He didn't scream, didn't collapse, just knelt there, breathing hard through his teeth, eyes locked on Grant. Put the gun down, Luca said. His voice was steady, too steady, like he'd done this before. Grant stared at the weapon, at the blood, at Luca. I didn't mean to put it down. She was going to shoot you, and now you shot me instead. Real improvement, Grant. Luca's jaw clenched, sweat beaded on his forehead. Put the gun down before I bleed out, and my people come through that door and put 3 rounds in your skull. Grant's hands shook. Selene couldn't move, couldn't speak, couldn't do anything except stand there watching the nightmare unfold in real time. Then Grant swung the gun toward her. This is your fault. Selene's breath stopped. You destroyed everything, Grant continued, his voice cracked. We were fine before him. We were happy. We were never happy, Selene whispered. Liar. You hit me. You controlled me. I loved you. The gun wavered in his grip. I gave you everything, a home, stability, and you threw it away for what? For him? Grant gestured at Luca with the weapon. For a criminal who used you like a fucking pawn? He's right, Luca said quietly from the floor. I used you. Selene's eyes snapped to him, Blood soaked through his shirt now. His breathing was shallow, but his gaze was clear, unflinching. I needed someone clean, Luca continued. Someone the feds wouldn't look at twice. Someone smart enough to manage logistics without asking too many questions. You were perfect. He paused. But that's not why I protected you. Don't, Selene said. Her voice broke. Don't do this now. You deserve the truth. The truth is you're a liar. The truth is I saw you dying slowly in that office, and I couldn't walk away. Luca's hand slipped slightly. More blood. The job was an excuse. Protection was an excuse. I wanted you safe because Grant fired. The bullet punched into the wall 6 inches from Luca's head. Plaster exploded. The sound was massive. Shut up, Grant screamed. Shut up! Shut up! Shut up! The office door burst open. 3 security guards poured in, weapons drawn, shouting commands that overlapped into chaos. Drop the weapon! On the ground now! Hands where we can see them! Grant spun, pointed the gun at the guards, at Selene, at Luca. Wild, cornered. Stay back or I'll shoot her! The guards froze. Luca tried to stand, collapsed halfway up, caught himself against the desk. Grant, he said, calm, controlled. This ends one of 2 ways. You surrender, or you die in this room. Choose. I choose option 3. Grant grabbed Selene's arm, yanked her against him, pressed the gun to her temple. Selene's vision whited out. The metal was cold against her skin. Grant's breath was hot on her neck. He smelled like sweat and fear and desperation. Everybody back, Grant ordered, or I paint the walls with her. The guards didn't move. Luca's eyes met Selene's across the room. She saw calculation there, strategy, the gears turning behind the mask. Then she saw something else. Fear, real fear, not for himself, for her. Let her go, Luca said softly. No. Grant, I said no. The gun pressed harder. Selene felt the pressure against her skull like a kiss from death itself. We're walking out of here, all 3 of us. You're going to call off your dogs. You're going to get me a car, and you're going to transfer $500,000 into an account I specify. Do that, and maybe she lives. You won't make it to the elevator. Then we all die together. Silence. Luca looked at his guards. Stand down. Sir, I said stand down. The guards lowered their weapons, stepped back. Grant laughed, high-pitched, manic. See? I knew you'd see reason. You're not going to let her die. Not after all this. Not after... Selene moved, fast. She'd been watching Luca's eyes, watching for the signal she knew would come. And when his gaze flicked to her right hand, just for a second, she understood. She drove her elbow back into Grant's ribs. Hard. Grant gasped. The gun shifted. Selene dropped. 3 shots rang out. Selene hit the floor, covered her head, waited for pain that didn't come. When she looked up, Grant was on the ground. 2 red flowers bloomed across his chest, 1 in his shoulder. The gun lay 3 feet away. He was still breathing, barely. One of the guards held a smoking weapon. Luca leaned against the desk, hand still pressed to his side, watching Grant bleed out with absolutely no expression on his face. Get a medical team, Luca said. For both of us. Now. The guards moved. Selene crawled to Grant. He stared at the ceiling, eyes glassy, lips moving without sound. I loved you, he whispered, blood on his teeth. I loved you so much. Selene's throat closed. No, you didn't. I did. I do. You loved controlling me. There's a difference. Grant's eyes found hers. Something flickered there. Recognition, maybe. Or regret. Or just the lights going out one by one. I'm sorry. I know. Am I dying? Selene looked at the blood, at the way his breathing rattled. Yes. Grant closed his eyes. Good. Then he stopped moving. Selene sat beside his body and felt nothing. No relief, no grief, no satisfaction. Just emptiness where something used to be. Behind her, Luca slid down the wall, sat on the floor in a spreading pool of his own blood. Selene turned. How bad? Bad enough. You're going to bleed out. Probably. She crawled to him, pressed her hands over his, applied pressure. His blood was warm, sticky, too much of it. Don't you dare die. Wasn't planning on it. I mean it, Luca. Don't you fucking dare. He smiled, faint, pained. That an order? Yes. Then I guess I'll stick around. The medical team arrived 7 minutes later. Paramedics, doctors, people who moved with practiced efficiency, pushing Selene aside, cutting away Luca's shirt, packing the wound with gauze that turned red instantly. Bullet's still in there, one of them said. We need to move him, now. They loaded Luca onto a stretcher. He reached for Selene's hand as they wheeled him past. Stay. Where would I go? Anywhere. You're free now. Selene squeezed his hand. I'll be here when you wake up. Promise? Promise. They took him. Selene stood in the office surrounded by blood and bodies and broken glass and tried to remember what her life had looked like before all of this. She couldn't, mamas. The hospital was private, exclusive, the kind of place where doctors didn't ask questions and security wore suits instead of uniforms. Luca was in surgery for 4 hours. Selene sat in a waiting room that looked more like a hotel lobby, staring at her hands. Grant's blood had dried under her fingernails. Luca's blood stained her sleeves. She should wash, should change, should call someone. But who? Her mother? What would she even say? Hi, Mom. My abusive ex-boyfriend is dead and the crime lord I may be in love with just got shot. How's Thanksgiving planning going? She laughed. The sound came out wrong, broken. A nurse appeared. Ms. Vale? Selene stood. Is he? He's stable. The surgery went well. Bullet missed major organs. He'll need rest, but he'll recover. Relief hit like a wave. Can I see him? He's unconscious, won't wake for several hours, but you can sit with him if you'd like. Selene followed the nurse down sterile hallways to a private room. Luca lay in the bed, hooked to monitors and IV lines, pale beneath the fluorescent lights. His chest rose and fell steadily. The machines beeped their mechanical reassurance. Selene pulled a chair close, took his hand. It was still warm, still alive. She sat there for hours, watching him breathe, thinking about everything that had led to this moment. The first time she'd seen him in the office, the way he'd watched her limp through presentations, the question that had shattered everything. Who hurt you? The penthouse, the protection, the job offer, the lies, all of it, every decision, every manipulation, every moment of tenderness wrapped around calculated strategy. And beneath it all, the truth she didn't want to face. She cared about him, maybe more than cared, maybe loved him, even knowing what he had done, what he was, what he'd used her for. The door opened. A woman entered. Late 50s, expensive suit, gray hair pulled back, eyes sharp enough to cut. Ms. Vale. Selene stood. Who are you? Margaret Chen, Mr. Devereux's attorney. We need to talk. About what? Margaret pulled out a tablet, opened a file. About the fact that you were involved in a shooting that killed your ex-boyfriend. About the fact that you've been working for Luca Devereux's organization for 3 months. About the paperwork you signed, the contracts you managed, the shipments you coordinated. She looked up. About the fact that if the FBI decides to investigate, you're looking at money laundering charges, racketeering conspiracy, and potentially accessory to murder. Selene's legs went weak. I didn't know. Doesn't matter. Ignorance isn't a defense. Margaret set down the tablet. But I can make this go away. All of it. The investigation, the questions, the liability. I'm very good at making problems disappear. Why would you help me? Because Luca asked me to, before surgery. Said if anything happened to him, I was to make sure you were protected. Legally, financially, completely. Margaret's expression softened slightly. He cares about you, Ms. Vale. More than is wise. More than is safe. And he's willing to burn his entire organization to the ground if it means keeping you out of prison. Selene sat down hard. What do I have to do? Nothing. Just let me work. Margaret picked up her tablet. In the meantime, you should know something. Grant Mercer's body was found by police an hour ago. Ruled a suicide. Gunshot wound to the chest. Tragic case of a man spiraling after his girlfriend left him. Celine's stomach turned. That's not what happened. Oh, that's the official story. The one that keeps you alive and free. Margaret headed for the door. Welcome to Luca's world, Ms. Vale, where the truth is whatever we need it to be. She left. Selene sat alone with the weight of it. Grant was dead. The story was rewritten. She was complicit. Again. Luca woke 3 hours later. Selene was dozing in the chair when she heard him groan. Her eyes snapped open. He was staring at the ceiling, jaw tight, clearly in pain. "Hey," she said softly. He turned his head, focused on her. "You stayed. I promised. People break promises. I don't." Something shifted in his expression. "Grant?" "Dead." "Good." Selene's throat tightened. "Your lawyer was here, said it's being ruled a suicide." "It will be." "That's not the truth." "The truth would put you in prison." Luca's voice was rough, tired. "I'd rather lie." Selene stood, walked to the window, stared out at the city lights. "I don't know who I am anymore." "You're Selene Vale, survivor, fighter, smartest person I've ever met." "I'm a criminal." "You're under my protection." "Same thing." "No," Luca said. "It's not." Selene turned. "You used me. You lied to me. You turned me into something I never wanted to be." "I know. And you'd do it again. In a heartbeat." "Why?" "Because keeping you alive matters more than keeping you innocent." Selene's hands clenched. "You don't get to make that choice for me." "I already did." She crossed the room, stood beside his bed. "I should hate you." "You should." "I should walk out of here and never look back." "You should." "But I can't." Her voice broke. "I can't. Because somehow, in the middle of all your lies and manipulation and criminal bullshit, you actually saw me. You saw me when I was invisible. You cared when no one else bothered. I fell in love with you." The words hung in the air between them. Selene's breath stopped. "What?" "I fell in love with you." Luca's gaze was steady, unflinching. "Somewhere between watching you survive and watching you fight. Between seeing you broken and seeing you rebuild. I fell. Hard, completely. And I'd do everything the same way again if it meant you were standing here alive instead of buried beside Grant." Selene's vision blurred. "You can't just school." "I can. I am." Luca tried to sit up, winced, fell back. "I love you, Selene. I love your strength, your intelligence, the way you survived when survival seemed impossible, the way you see through bullshit even when the bullshit is mine." He paused. "And I know I don't deserve you. I know I'm a criminal and a liar and everything you should run from, but I'm asking you anyway. Stay. Not because you owe me, not because you're trapped, but because you want to." Selene stared at him. At this man who'd saved her and ruined her in equal measure, who'd protected her and manipulated her, who'd lied about everything except this. She should leave, should run, should build a new life somewhere far from Milwaukee and Chicago and men who solved problems with bullets. Instead, she leaned down, kissed him, gentle, careful. Because he was hurt and bleeding and barely holding together. Luca's hand came up, cupped her face. When they broke apart, he was smiling. "That a yes?" "That's a maybe. I'll take it." "Don't get comfortable. I'm still furious with you." "Noted. And I'm not forgiving you for the money laundering thing." "Understandable. And if you ever lie to me again, I won't." "Luca, I won't." His thumb traced her cheekbone. "No more lies, no more manipulation, just truth, even when it's ugly, even when it hurts, I promise." Selene wanted to believe him, wanted to trust that this moment was real and not another performance. But trust was a luxury she couldn't afford anymore. "We'll see," she said. Sick. Luca was discharged 4 days later against medical advice. His people had secured the top floor of a different building, this one with better security and no bloodstains in the office. Selene helped him into the penthouse, watched him wince with every step, and wondered how someone could get shot and still refuse to sit still. "You need rest." "I need to work." You need to not die. I'm fine. You were shot. Barely. The bullet went through your liver. Missed it. Mostly. Selene glared at him. Luca sat down. Finally. Happy? Thrilled. She went to the kitchen, poured water, brought it back. Luca was on his phone already, scrolling through messages with one hand pressed to his bandaged side. You're impossible. So I've been told. Put the phone down. I'm running an organization. I can't just put it down. He looked at her. Something in her voice made him listen. He set the phone on the table. What? Selene sat across from him. What happens now? You recover, I recover, we figure out the rest. That's not a plan. That's avoidance. It's survival. I need more than survival, Luca. I need to know what this is, what we are, what I'm doing here. Luca was quiet for a long moment. What do you want it to be? I don't know. Then we take it slow. One day at a time, no pressure, no expectations, just, he paused, us. Whatever that means. Selene studied him. This man who'd upended her entire existence, who'd promised safety and delivered chaos, who'd lied about everything except how he felt. Okay. Okay? One day at a time. But if you lie to me again, I won't. If you manipulate me, I won't. If you use me, Selene, Luca leaned forward despite the pain it clearly caused. I will spend the rest of my life making up for what I did. I will be honest even when honesty is inconvenient. I will give you every choice I stole from you before, and I will never, ever take you for granted again. His eyes were dark, serious. That's my promise. Take it or leave it. Selene's chest tightened. I'll take it. Good. They sat in silence. Outside, the city glowed. Inside, something fragile and new began to take shape. Something built not on lies, but on the wreckage of everything that came before. But 2 weeks passed. Luca healed slowly. Selene took over more of the legitimate operations, learning quickly that running a criminal empire required the same skills as running any business, just with higher stakes and more guns. Margaret Chen became a fixture in their lives, stopping by with contracts and legal strategies, and the occasional reminder that Selene was still technically implicated in multiple felonies. But, Margaret said one afternoon while reviewing paperwork, as long as you stay under Luca's protection and don't do anything stupid, you're untouchable. That's comforting, Selene said dryly. It should be. Untouchable is rare in this world. The FBI came sniffing around twice. Both times, Margaret handled it with a combination of legal maneuvering and well-placed threats that Selene didn't want details about. Grant's death stayed ruled a suicide. The media lost interest after a week. Life settled into something almost normal. Until the night Luca's phone rang at 3 a.m. Selene woke to him sitting on the edge of the bed, shoulders tense, voice low. When? Pause. How many? Another pause. I'm on my way. He hung up. Started dressing. What happened? Selene asked. Santini's people hit one of my warehouses, burned it to the ground. 3 men dead. Selene sat up. Why? Because I refused to pay Grant's debt. Because I embarrassed them. Because in this world, disrespect is answered with violence. Luca pulled on a shirt, winced as the fabric stretched over his healing wound. I need to handle this. How? The only way I know how. Selene stood. I'm coming with you. No. Luca, this isn't a negotiation. You stay here where it's safe. Safe? Selene repeated. Nothing about this life is safe. Which is exactly why you're staying. You don't get to make that choice for me anymore. Luca turned, met her eyes. If something happens to you because of my war with Santini, I'll never forgive myself. So yes, I'm making this choice. You stay here. He left before she could argue. Selene stood alone in the bedroom, fury and fear warring inside her chest. Then she got dressed, found the gun Luca had given her weeks ago, checked the safety, and followed him into the night. Yuck. The warehouse district sat on the edge of Milwaukee, all rusted metal and broken windows and streets that hadn't seen maintenance in a decade. Selene arrived 20 minutes after Luca, parking 3 blocks away and approaching on foot. She could see the smoke before she reached the building. Black, thick, rising against the pre-dawn sky. Fire trucks surrounded the warehouse. Police. Luca's people formed a perimeter, keeping everyone back. Selene found him standing near the wreckage, watching it burn, his face lit by flames. She walked up beside him. He didn't turn. "I told you to stay home. And I told you I'm done being protected like I'm fragile. You could have been killed. So could you." Luca finally looked at her. "Why are you here?" "Because this is my life now. Because you dragged me into your world, and I don't get to pretend I'm not part of it anymore. Because," she paused, "because if you're going to war, I'm going with you." Something shifted in his expression. "You understand what that means?" "Yes." "You understand there's no going back?" "I stopped being able to go back the moment I called you from that stairwell." Luca stared at her for a long moment. Then he nodded. "Okay. Okay. You want in? You're in, but you follow my lead. You trust my people, and you don't take risks that'll get you killed. Agreed?" "Agreed." Luca turned back to the burning warehouse. "Santini wants a war. We'll give him one, but not the one he's expecting. What's the plan?" "We take everything he values, his businesses, his territory, his reputation. We dismantle his empire piece by piece until he has nothing left except the choice to surrender or die. And if he chooses death," Luca's jaw tightened, "then we accommodate him." The warehouse collapsed inward with a sound like the world breaking. Flames reached toward the sky, and Selene stood beside Luca watching it burn, understanding with absolute clarity that she'd crossed a line tonight that could never be uncrossed. She wasn't a victim anymore. She wasn't even a survivor. She was something new, something forged in violence and wrapped in vengeance, something dangerous. And as the first light of dawn crept across the horizon, Selene Vale smiled. Because for the first time in her entire life, she wasn't afraid. She was ready. The war started quietly, not with explosions or gunfire, but with phone calls in the middle of the night, bank accounts frozen, shipments delayed, vendors suddenly unwilling to do business. Santini's empire didn't collapse all at once. It bled, slow, methodical, the way Luca had promised. Selene watched it unfold from the inside. She sat in on meetings where men spoke in code about things she was still learning to translate. She reviewed ledgers that tracked money flowing through channels designed to hide its origins. She signed documents that made her complicit in ways she'd stopped trying to justify. This was her life now, and she'd chosen it. 3 weeks after the warehouse burned, Luca's people identified Santini's main distribution hub, a shipping facility on the south side disguised as a legitimate freight company, the kind of place that moved everything from furniture to pharmaceuticals, and nobody asked questions as long as the paperwork looked clean. Luca planned the operation like a military strike. Selene sat across from him in his office, watching him move pieces across a map like chess. "We hit them at shift change," he said. 4 a.m., minimal personnel, maximum impact. We disable their security, seize their inventory, and disappear before the cops even get the call. And Santini? Will retaliate, which is what we want. Selene frowned. "You want him to retaliate?" "I want him desperate. Desperate men make mistakes. And when he makes his mistake, we end this." "By end this, you mean?" "I mean Santini stops being a problem. Permanently." The word hung in the air between them. Selene should have felt something. Horror, disgust, fear. Instead, she felt nothing, just cold calculation. "When do we move?" Luca looked up. "We?" "You said I was in. I'm in. This isn't signing contracts, Selene. This is—" "I know what it is." Her voice was steady. "And I'm still going." Luca studied her for a long moment, then nodded. "Okay, but you follow orders, no improvisation, no heroics. Understood?" "Understood." They moved at 3:30 a.m. 4 vehicles, 12 people. Selene rode with Luca in the lead car, wearing dark clothes and a vest that felt too heavy against her chest. She'd never worn body armor before. Never thought she'd need to. The shipping facility appeared through the darkness like a concrete fortress. Chain link fence, security cameras, floodlights that turned night into day. Luca's tech specialist disabled the cameras remotely. The lights stayed on. Killing them would have drawn attention. Instead, they cut the fence on the east side where the angle made surveillance difficult. They moved through the gap like shadows. Inside, the facility was massive. Rows of shipping containers stacked 3 high. Forklifts parked in neat lines. The smell of diesel and cardboard, and something chemical Selene couldn't identify. Luca's team spread out. 2 groups securing the perimeter. 2 more heading for the office where the manifests and computers were kept. Selene stayed close to Luca. They found the inventory in a locked container near the back. Luca's people cut the lock with hydraulic shears that made almost no sound. The doors swung open. Inside were crates, dozens of them, stacked floor to ceiling. One of Luca's men pried open the nearest crate. Pills, thousands of them. Oxycodone, fentanyl, prescription medications with street value in the millions. Jackpot, the man said quietly. Luca pulled out his phone, took photos, sent them somewhere Selene didn't ask about. Then he made a call. It's done. Send the trucks. They waited. 5 minutes. 10. Then headlights appeared at the gate. 3 unmarked trucks backed up to the container. Luca's people started loading. Fast. Efficient. Like they'd done this 100 times before. Selene stood watch near the entrance, gun in her hand, heart hammering so hard she could feel it in her throat. This was insane. This was criminal. This was her life now. A sound behind her made her turn. A man stood in the shadows near the office. Security guard, probably. He had a radio in one hand and a gun in the other. Selene raised her weapon. Don't. The guard stared at her, middle-aged, overweight, terrified. Please, he said. I don't want trouble. I just work here. Then put the gun down and walk away. I can't. They'll kill me if I let you go. They'll kill you if you don't? The guard's hand shook. Behind Selene, the loading continued, crates moving from container to trucks, time running out. I have kids, the guard said. Selene's chest tightened. Then think about them. Put the gun down. Walk out the back gate. Forget you saw anything. Go home to your kids. The guard's eyes welled up. They'll know I let you. They'll know you're alive. That's what matters. For a long moment, nothing moved. Then the guard set down his gun, dropped the radio, turned and ran. Selene exhaled. Luca appeared beside her. Problem? Handled. He looked at the discarded gun. The radio. You let him go. Yes. He'll report this. Probably. Could have shot him. Didn't need to. Luca studied her face, then nodded. Good call. The trucks finished loading. Engines rumbled. The convoy pulled out through the broken fence and disappeared into the city. Luca's team evacuated last. By the time the police arrived 20 minutes later, the facility was empty except for scattered equipment and an open container, and one very confused security guard trying to explain what he'd seen to cops who didn't believe him. Santini retaliated 48 hours later. A car bomb outside one of Luca's restaurants. No casualties. The device went off at 3 a.m. when the building was empty. But the message was clear. Luca responded by seizing 2 more of Santini's shipments, burning a warehouse, bribing 3 of Santini's lieutenants to switch sides. The war escalated. Selene stopped sleeping through the night. Every sound made her flinch. Every phone call could be the one bringing bad news. She kept the gun close, kept the doors locked, kept waiting for the moment everything collapsed. It came on a Tuesday. Luca's phone rang during breakfast. He answered, listened. His face went dark. When? Pause. Confirmed? Another pause. I'm on my way. He hung up, looked at Selene. Santini knows where we are. Her stomach dropped. How? Someone talked, or someone followed us. Doesn't matter. He's sending people. We need to move, now. They grabbed essentials, left everything else. We're in the car within 10 minutes. Luca drove, fast, aggressive, weaving through traffic like someone expecting pursuit. Where are we going? Safe house north of the city, off the grid. He won't find us there. You're sure? No, but it's the best option we have. They made it 30 miles before the first tail appeared. Black sedan. Tinted windows. Staying 3 cars back but matching every turn. Luca saw it in the mirror. "We've got company." Selene turned, looked. "How many?" "1 car, probably 3 or 4 men." "What do we do?" Luca's jaw tightened. "Hold on." He accelerated. The highway stretched ahead, mostly empty this time of morning. Luca pushed the car to 90. 100. The sedan kept pace. Then a second car appeared. This one pulled alongside. Window rolled down, gun barrel visible. "Get down!" Selene dropped below the dashboard. The first shot shattered the rear window. Glass exploded inward. The second shot punched through the door panel 6 inches from Selene's head. Luca swerved, hard. The attacking car fell back. Luca took an exit at 70 miles an hour, tires screaming. The sedan followed. The second car tried to cut them off and missed. They hit surface streets. Residential neighborhood, trees, houses, people starting their morning routines. Luca braked, turned, accelerated again. Behind them, the sedan gained ground. More gunfire. The rear windshield disintegrated completely. Luca's side mirror exploded. Then Luca did something insane. He slammed the brakes. The car skidded, spun, came to a stop perpendicular to the road. The sedan had no time to react. It tried to brake. Too late. Impact. Metal screamed. The sedan T-boned Luca's car on the passenger side. Selene felt the collision in her bones. The airbag deployed. White fabric and chemical smoke. Her ears rang. Then Luca was pulling her out. "Move! Now!" They ran. Behind them, men emerged from the wrecked sedan, dazed, angry, armed. Luca pulled Selene into an alley, through a yard, over a fence. Gunshots followed them, bullets snapping past, too close, too real. They made it to another street. Luca flagged down a passing truck, pulled out his gun, aimed at the driver. "Out! Now!" The driver scrambled out, ran. Luca shoved Selene into the truck, got in, drove. Behind them, sirens wailed, police, fire, ambulance. The neighborhood they'd just destroyed erupting into chaos. Luca drove for 20 minutes before pulling into an abandoned industrial lot, parked behind a building, killed the engine. Silence. Except for their breathing. Selene's hands shook, adrenaline crashing, blood on her face from where glass had cut her. Luca checked his phone, made a call. "We're compromised. Need extraction. Sending coordinates." He hung up, looked at Selene. "You okay?" "No." "Injured?" "I don't know." He checked her over. Cuts on her face and arms. Nothing serious, nothing that wouldn't heal. "You did good," he said. "I almost died." "But you didn't." "That's not comforting. It's the truth." They sat in the stolen truck waiting for extraction, covered in glass and blood and the wreckage of another life they'd have to leave behind. And Selene realized something terrifying. She was getting used to this. The extraction team arrived 30 minutes later. Different cars, different people. Same cold efficiency. They were taken to a location Selene didn't recognize. Industrial building, bare concrete, no windows, the kind of place that existed off any map. Inside, Luca's entire operation had relocated. Computers, files, people working like ants rebuilding after the nest got kicked. Margaret Chen was there. "This is bad," she said without preamble. "Santini's going public, claims you stole from him, claims you're a threat to the city. He's got aldermen making noise, cops asking questions, FBI sniffing around." "Can you contain it?" Luca asked. "I can try, but this is bigger than money. Santini wants you dead, and he's willing to burn his own empire to make it happen." "Then we end it. Tonight." Margaret's eyes widened. "Luca, I'm done running, done playing defense. We take Santini out of the equation, permanently." "You're talking about murder." "I'm talking about survival." Margaret looked at Selene. "And you're okay with this?" Selene met her gaze. "I'm okay with staying alive." Margaret sighed. "Then I'll make sure the legal fallout doesn't bury you. But understand, if this goes wrong, there's no walking it back. You'll both be wanted, hunted, finished." "It won't go wrong," Luca said. "You can't promise that. Watch me." Santini operated out of a restaurant on the northwest side. Italian, expensive, the kind of place that did legitimate business during the day and criminal enterprise after hours. Luca's intelligence said Santini would be there tonight, meeting with his remaining lieutenants, planning his next move. It was the perfect opportunity, or a perfect trap. Luca assembled a team, 8 men, all veterans of this kind of work, all loyal, all willing to die if necessary. Selene insisted on going. "Absolutely not," Luca said. "You don't get to protect me anymore." "I'm not protecting you. I'm being practical. You're not trained for this." "I was trained the moment you put a gun in my hand." "Selene, I'm going. End of discussion." Luca stared at her, jaw tight, frustrated, but recognizing something in her eyes that told him arguing was pointless. "Fine. But you stay in the car. You're backup, not assault." "Agreed." They moved at 10 p.m., 4 cars. Coordinated approach. The restaurant sat on a corner lot, brick building, lights glowing warm through the windows. Looked normal. Looked safe. Looked like a lie. Luca's team parked 2 blocks away. Approached on foot. Selene stayed in the lead car with the driver, watching through binoculars. She saw Luca and his people reach the restaurant, saw them breach the front door, saw muzzle flashes through the windows. Then the world exploded. Not metaphorically, literally. The entire second floor detonated. Fire erupted through the roof. Glass shattered outward. The blast wave rocked the car. Selene sat in half a block away. Her ears rang. Her vision blurred. "No," she whispered. Then she was running. The driver shouted after her, but she didn't listen, didn't care, just ran toward the burning building where Luca had disappeared into fire and smoke. People were screaming, running, debris everywhere. The heat was massive. Selene reached the entrance. The door was blown off its hinges. Inside was chaos, bodies, blood, flames crawling up the walls. She found one of Luca's men near the bar, alive. Barely. "Where is he?" The man pointed toward the back. Selene went. Smoke choked her. Heat blistered her skin. She stumbled over rubble, over bodies, over things she didn't want to identify. Then she found him. Luca lay near the kitchen, covered in debris, blood on his face, not moving. "No, no, no, no." She dropped beside him, checked for a pulse. Faint. But there. "Luca, wake up. Please wake up." His eyes opened, unfocused, struggling. "Selene? I'm here. I've got you. We need to move." "Can't." "Legs?" She looked. His leg was pinned under a fallen beam. Blood pooled beneath it. Okay. I'm getting you out." She tried to lift the beam. Couldn't. Too heavy. Too much. Behind her, the fire roared closer. "Selene," Luca's voice was weak. "Go." "No. Building's coming down. You need to." "I'm not leaving you. You have to." "I said no." She pulled at the beam again, screamed with effort, felt something shift. Not enough. Then hands appeared beside hers. 2 of Luca's men. Alive. Burned. Barely functional, but lifting. Together they moved the beam. Luca gasped as his leg came free. Bone visible through torn fabric. Blood everywhere. "Get him up!" They hauled Luca to his feet. He screamed, nearly passed out. Selene took his weight on one side. One of the men took the other. They moved toward the exit. The building groaned. Supports failing. Ceiling cracking. They made it to the door. Into the street. Away from the building. 20 seconds later, the entire structure collapsed inward. Fire consumed everything. Selene sat on the curb holding Luca, covered in soot and blood and ash, watching the restaurant burn. Sirens approached. Too many sirens. "We need to go," one of Luca's men said. "Now, before the cops—" "Did we get him?" Selene interrupted. "Did we get Santini?" The man shook his head. "He wasn't there. It was a setup. The whole thing was a trap." Selene's vision darkened. "Then where is he?" "Don't know, but we need to leave. Now." They loaded Luca into a car, drove away from the wreckage, away from the crime scene, away from witnesses and questions and consequences. And Selene sat in his back seat with Luca's head in her lap, blood soaking through her clothes, understanding with absolute certainty that this war had just become personal. But Luca survived. Barely. The leg required surgery, metal pins, physical therapy that would take months. He'd walk with a limp for the rest of his life. But he'd walk. They relocated again. Third time in as many weeks. This time to a property so remote it didn't have an address. Just coordinates. While Luca recovered, Selene took over. Not officially, not publicly, but in the ways that mattered. She coordinated operations, made decisions, dealt with Luca's lieutenants who looked at her with varying degrees of skepticism and respect. She proved herself in the ways that counted in this world, by being smarter, colder, more ruthless than they expected. 2 weeks after the restaurant explosion, Luca's intelligence finally located Santini. He'd gone to ground, hiding in a fortified compound outside the city, protected by what was left of his organization, paranoid, desperate, exactly where they wanted him. Selene brought the information to Luca. He was sitting up in bed, leg elevated, looking stronger than he had in days. "We found him." Luca's eyes sharpened. "Where?" She told him. "How many men does he have?" "Maybe a dozen, maybe less. His empire's collapsed. Most of his people abandoned him or switched sides. So he's isolated." "Yes." "Good." Luca shifted, winced. "We end this tomorrow." "You're not going anywhere," Selene said firmly. "Your leg—" "I don't care about my leg." "I do. You're still recovering. You can barely walk." "Then I'll sit in the car. But I'm not letting someone else finish what I started." Selene sat on the edge of the bed. "Let me do it." Luca blinked. "What?" "Let me finish it. I'll take your team. I'll handle Santini. You stay here and recover." "Absolutely not." "Why?" "Because you're not a killer, Selene. Neither were you once." "That's different." "How?" Luca was quiet for a long moment. "Because I chose this life. You didn't. It was forced on you. And now I'm choosing it." Selene's voice was steady. "I'm choosing to end the threat. I'm choosing to protect what we've built. I'm choosing you. So let me finish this." Luca stared at her, jaw tight, conflicted. Then he nodded. "Okay. But you take Marco and Vincent, best shooters I have, and you don't take unnecessary risks. Understood?" "Understood." They hit the compound at dawn. 6 people, 3 vehicles. Selene wore body armor and carried a weapon that felt less foreign in her hands than it should have. The compound was a converted farmhouse. High fence, guard posts, security cameras. But Santini's organization was in shambles. Only 4 guards visible, minimal defenses. Arrogance or desperation. Either way, it was a weakness. Luca's tech specialist disabled the cameras remotely. Then Selene's team breached the fence on the north side. They moved through the property like ghosts, neutralized guards with suppressed weapons and zip ties, reached the main house without firing a shot. The front door was locked. Marco kicked it open. Inside, the house was quiet, expensively furnished but showing signs of hasty occupation, clothes scattered, dirty dishes, the smell of fear and cigarettes. They cleared the first floor, kitchen, living room, office, empty. Upstairs, Selene took point, heart hammering, every nerve alive. They found Santini in the master bedroom. He sat in a chair near the window, holding a gun loosely in one hand, staring out at the sunrise. He didn't turn when they entered. "Took you long enough," he said quietly. Selene raised her weapon. "Put the gun down." "Why? So you can kill me anyway?" Santini laughed, bitter. "I know how this ends." "Then make it easy." "Easy?" Santini finally turned. He looked older than his photos, worn, defeated. "Nothing about this has been easy. I built an empire, decades of work, and you destroyed it in weeks. You came after us first. Because you disrespected me. Because that bastard Devereux refused to pay a legitimate debt." Grant's debt wasn't legitimate. He was a gambler and a coward. He was collateral, and collateral always pays. Santini raised his gun. Selene fired. 3 shots. Center mass. Santini fell. The gun clattered from his hand. He stared up at the ceiling, blood spreading across his shirt, breathing shallow and wet. "Didn't think you had it in you," he whispered. Selene stood over him. "Neither did I." Santini smiled, blood on his teeth. Welcome to the life. Then he stopped breathing. Selene stared at the body, at what she'd done, at the line she'd crossed that could never be uncrossed. Marco appeared beside her. We need to go. Cops will be here soon. Selene nodded. They left the farmhouse, left the body, left the evidence for people who'd clean it up and make it disappear. By the time police arrived an hour later, the scene was sanitized. Santini's death ruled a gangland execution. No witnesses, no suspects, just another criminal meeting and expected end. And Selene drove back to Luca knowing she'd become exactly what she'd always feared. Luca was waiting when she returned. He sat on the porch of the safe house, leg propped up, face unreadable. Selene climbed the steps, sat beside him. It's done. I heard. They sat in silence. Finally, Luca spoke. How do you feel? Selene thought about it. Really thought. Empty. That's normal. Is it? The first one always is. There shouldn't be a first one. But there is. And now you have to decide what comes next. Selene looked at him. What do you mean? I mean, you've seen what this life costs. You've killed for it, bled for it, almost died for it. Luca's voice was soft. So now you decide. Do you want to keep living it, or do you want out? Is out even an option? Margaret can make it happen. New identity, new city, money to start over. You disappear completely. Live whatever life you want. Without you. Without me. Selene's chest tightened. And if I stay, then you stay. Fully. No more half measures. You're part of this organization, part of my world. For better or worse. That's not a choice. That's a trap. No. Luca turned to face her. A trap is when you don't have options. You have options. Real ones. I'm giving them to you. What you choose is entirely up to you. Selene stared out at the forest, at the morning light filtering through the trees, at the world that had become her battlefield. I don't know who I am anymore. You're Selene Vale, survivor, fighter, someone who refused to stay broken. I'm also a killer. Yes. And a criminal. Yes. And complicit in things I can't take back. Yes. Luca paused. But you're also alive. Free. Stronger than you've ever been. And those things matter too. Selene's throat tightened. I killed someone today. I know. I looked him in the eyes and pulled the trigger. I know. And I don't feel guilty. Luca was quiet for a moment. That's the part that scares you. Yes. Good. The day it stops scaring you is the day you've lost yourself completely. They sat together watching the sun climb higher. Birds sang. Wind moved through the trees. The world continued spinning like nothing had changed, even though everything had. Finally, Selene spoke. I'm staying. Luca looked at her. You're sure? No, but I'm staying anyway. Why? Selene turned, met his eyes. Because I spent 3 years living in fear, and I spent the last 6 months learning what it feels like to fight back, to choose, to matter. She paused. I'm not going back to being invisible, even if staying visible means living in your world. Luca reached for her hand. Then stay. And I promise I'll spend every day making sure you never regret it. You can't promise that. I can try. Selene squeezed his hand. Okay. 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 They sat together in the morning light. Two people who'd found each other in darkness and decided to stay. Not because it was easy, not because it was safe, but because somehow, against all odds and logic and reason, they'd built something real from the wreckage. And that was worth fighting for. Bored. 6 months later. Selene stood in front of a construction site in downtown Milwaukee, watching workers pour concrete for what would become a new community center. The building would house after-school programs, job training, resources for people escaping domestic violence. The Devereux Foundation had funded it, Luca's legitimate empire, laundering his past into something that actually helped people. It was pragmatic, strategic, good PR, but it was also real. Selene had designed the programs herself, used her own experience to shape services that would have saved her years of suffering if they'd existed before, turned pain into purpose. Luca appeared beside her, walking with a cane now instead of crutches. Progress. How's it looking? Good. On schedule? Under budget. You're a miracle worker. I'm practical. Same thing. They watched the construction in comfortable silence. You still think about it? Luca asked eventually. About what? That night, the farmhouse, Santini. Selene was quiet for a moment. Every day. Regret? No, just remembering. Does it get easier? I don't know yet. Ask me in a year. Luca nodded. For what it's worth, I'm proud of you. For killing someone? For surviving? For choosing yourself? For building something good out of something terrible? He paused. For staying? Selene leaned into him slightly. Where else would I go? Anywhere. You're free now. Free is relative. True. But you're freer than you were. Selene thought about Grant, about the apartment where she'd learned to make herself small, about the bruises she'd hidden and the apologies she'd accepted. That version of herself felt like someone else entirely, someone she'd buried alongside the past. Yeah, she said quietly. I am. That evening, they returned to the penthouse Luca had purchased in Milwaukee's 3rd Ward. Not the safe house, not a temporary location, an actual home. Selene had decorated it. Plants, books, art that made the space feel lived in instead of staged. She cooked dinner while Luca worked at the kitchen island, reviewing contracts for another acquisition. The domesticity was surreal, normal, almost boring, except for the gun in the drawer, the security cameras. The bodyguard stationed discreetly throughout the building. Normal was a word that didn't quite fit anymore. After dinner, they sat on the balcony overlooking the city, lights spreading out like stars, the river reflecting neon and movement. I have something for you, Luca said. He handed her an envelope. Selene opened it. Inside was a single document, deed transfer, property in northern Wisconsin, the estate where she'd first learned what Luca really was. You're giving me the estate? It's in your name. Has been for 3 months. Legally yours. No strings attached. Selene stared at the document. Why? Because you need something that's entirely yours. Something no one can take. Something that exists separate from me and my world. Luca paused. And because if something happens to me, you'll need somewhere safe to disappear to. Selene's throat tightened. Nothing's going to happen to you. You can't know that. I can hope. Hope's good, but preparation is better. Selene set down the document. Thank you. You're welcome. They sat in silence for a while. Then Selene spoke. Do you ever regret it? This life? Luca considered the question. I regret the things I've done, the people I've hurt, the choices I can't take back. He paused. But I don't regret surviving, and I don't regret finding you. Even though I'm a mess, you're not a mess. You're a masterpiece in progress. Selene laughed. That's the cheesiest thing you've ever said. Doesn't make it less true. She leaned over, kissed him, soft, lingering. When they broke apart, Luca smiled. What was that for? For seeing me when I was invisible. For caring when no one else did. For giving me choices even when it cost you. Selene paused. For loving me when I couldn't love myself. I'll always love you. Even when I'm difficult? Especially then. Selene rested her head on his shoulder. Below them, the city lived its life, oblivious to the violence that lurked in penthouses and boardrooms, oblivious to the wars fought in shadows. And Selene realized something profound. She'd spent her entire life trying to be good, trying to follow rules, trying to earn love through compliance and sacrifice, and it had nearly killed her. Now she was free, complicated, morally ambiguous, alive in ways she'd never been before. And if that meant living in the gray spaces between right and wrong, so be it. She'd survived the darkness and learned to make it hers. A year later, The community center opened to quiet fanfare, ribbon cutting, local politicians, press coverage that painted the Devereux Foundation as a model of corporate responsibility. Selene stood beside Luca, watching families stream through the doors, watching kids run toward the playground, watching women who looked like she used to look, exhausted, afraid, barely holding together, walk into the Domestic Violence Resource Center with hope in their eyes. This was real. This mattered. Later that night, after the cameras left and the speeches ended, Selene and Luca walked through the empty building together. "Think it'll help?" she asked. "Yes." "How can you be sure?" "Because you designed it, and you understand what people need because you needed it once." They stopped in the main hall. Moonlight streamed through the windows. "I never thought my life would look like this," Selene said quietly. "Like what?" "Like something good could come from something terrible. Like I could take all that pain and fear and violence and turn it into something that actually helps people. That's what survivors do. They transform. Is that what I am? A survivor?" Luca turned to face her. "You're more than that. You're someone who refused to let the worst thing define you, who chose to fight back, who took control of your own story and rewrote the ending." He paused. "You're extraordinary, Selene, even if you don't see it yet." Selene's eyes burned. "I love you. I love you too." They kissed in the empty community center, surrounded by the promise of second chances and new beginnings. And for the first time since this entire nightmare started, Selene felt something she'd almost forgotten existed. Peace. Not the absence of danger, but the presence of purpose. The knowledge that she'd survived the fire and learned to forge something beautiful from the ashes. 2 years after Grant's death. Selene sat in a therapist's office, talking about trauma and healing and the long road between surviving and thriving. She'd resisted therapy for months, thought she could handle it alone, thought admitting she needed help was weakness. Luca had convinced her otherwise. "Strength isn't refusing help," he'd said. "It's accepting you need it and doing the work anyway." So she did the work, learned about PTSD and triggers and the way trauma lived in the body even after the danger passed. Learned that healing wasn't linear, that bad days didn't erase progress, that recovery was messy and slow and frustratingly imperfect, but possible, always possible. Her therapist asked about Luca. "How are things between you?" "Good. Complicated, but good." "You trust him?" Selene considered. "Yes. Not blindly, but yes." "What changed?" "He stopped trying to protect me from the truth, started including me in decisions, treating me like an equal instead of something fragile." Selene paused, "And I stopped waiting for him to save me and started saving myself." "That's significant growth." "It doesn't feel like growth. It feels like survival." "Sometimes they're the same thing." After the session, Selene walked to a coffee shop near the center, sat by the window, watched people pass by living their ordinary lives. She pulled out her phone, scrolled through photos. The community center opening, Luca laughing at something she'd said. The estate in winter, snow covering everything in white. A life she'd built from nothing, a life that was hers. Her phone buzzed. Text from Luca. "Dinner tonight?" "I'm cooking." She smiled, typed back. "Your cooking is terrible." "I know, but I try." "Fine, but I'm picking the wine." "Deal." Selene put her phone away, finished her coffee, stepped out into the afternoon sun. The city stretched before her, full of possibility and danger and everything in between, and Selene Vale walked into it with her head high and her eyes open. Not because she wasn't afraid, but because she'd learned that courage wasn't the absence of fear. It was walking forward anyway, one step at a time, toward the life she'd fought so hard to claim, and refusing to let anyone take it away again. 5 years after everything changed, Selene stood in front of a mirror, adjusting the collar of a dark blazer. Behind her, the bedroom was warm and lived in, photos on the wall, books stacked on nightstands, evidence of a life shared. Luca appeared in the doorway. "Ready?" "Almost." "You look beautiful." "I look tired." "Same thing." She turned, smiled despite herself. They were attending a fundraiser for the foundation. Black tie affair, donors and politicians and people who wanted to be seen doing good. Selene hated these events, but she attended anyway because they mattered, because they funded the programs that changed lives, because she understood better than anyone how important it was to create spaces where people could escape violence and rebuild. At the fundraiser, she gave a speech, brief, honest, about survival and transformation and the importance of supporting people who were trying to escape impossible situations. She didn't mention Grant, didn't mention her own history, didn't need to. The message was clear anyway. Afterward, donors approached with checks and compliments. Selene smiled, thanked them, played the role she'd learned to inhabit, polished, professional, competent, a woman who'd built something that mattered. Later, when the crowd thinned and the speeches ended, Luca found her on the balcony. "You did well. I said 12 sentences. You said them perfectly." Selene leaned against the railing. "Do you ever think about how we started?" "Constantly. Do you regret any of it?" Luca was quiet for a moment. "I regret that you had to suffer before we met. I regret that I lied to you. I regret every moment you were in danger because of me." He paused. "But I don't regret fighting for you, and I don't regret falling in love with you. Those are the only two things I got right." Selene reached for his hand. "We're a mess. We're a beautiful mess. That's still a mess." "True, but it's ours." They stood together overlooking the city. The same city where everything had fallen apart. The same city where they'd rebuilt from rubble. And Selene understood with absolute clarity that this was her ending, not perfect, not clean, not the fairy tale she'd imagined as a girl who thought love meant softness and safety and someone swooping in to rescue her. This was real, complicated, dangerous, built on foundations of violence and survival and choices that would haunt her forever. But it was hers. She'd chosen it, fought for it, earned it through blood and pain and refusing to surrender. And standing there beside Luca with the city spread out below them like a promise, Selene realized something that had taken 5 years to understand. Freedom wasn't escaping the darkness. It was learning to walk through it without letting it consume you. It was choosing yourself even when choosing yourself was terrifying. It was building something good from the wreckage and refusing to apologize for surviving. And as the night deepened and the city lights glowed brighter, Selene Vale smiled. Because for the first time in her entire life, she wasn't running from anything. She was exactly where she wanted to be. And that was enough.